Uh, Please ask Om Solawat to join. I think he had a problem while joining, so he has been removed automatically from the meeting, so he can join again. Okay, we are going for the design. So in the last lecture, we have seen this design. In the last lecture, we have designed a cone clutch which will transmit 11 kilowatt at 960 RPM. So we checked out rated power. We checked out the design power by considering various factors based on the operating condition given here. So this part we have done in the last lecture, so I will not repeat it. So you are already familiar with this part. Then we determine the sizes of our cone clutch based on the rated torque. We determine the minimum size of the shaft required. Then the hub diameter by taking 1.5 times. Then we check the hub diameter for the stress analysis. Then we checked out the bigger diameter of the cone, that is the outer diameter of the cone, by using the axial force requirement as well as torque requirement. So based on the both axial force requirement and the design torque requirement, then we checked out the how much would be the thickness of cone or cup, what should be the minimum thickness. So we found out that the minimum thickness was 8.3 mm, so we approximated as 10 mm. Then we determine what will be the spring force calculation requirement or axial force required for engagement, which will be provided by a spring. So that also we have done. So up to this point, we have designed the cone clutch. The only part remaining was the thermal analysis. So let's understand how the thermal analysis is done in any clutch. Typically now this analysis I have demonstrated is for cone clutch. So let's go for the cone clutch, thermal analysis of the clutch. Now when the cone clutch is rotating, the clutch is rotating with the shaft, so its rotational speed is equal to the shaft speed RPM. Now the clutch has a different radius. Clutch has different radius, so the peripheral speed of that clutch will be different. So while design calculation, we have to take certain speed. So we are calculating the mean radius and mean velocity of the cone surface. So we need to determine mean velocity of the clutch speed. Vm is equal to 2 pi Rm n into 60,000. If you take Rm in millimeter, n in RPM, so this formula will give you the velocity in meter per second. For this, we required Rm, and Rm is equal to R1 plus R2 by 2. And these R1 and R2 we already calculated, that is inside diameter and outside diameter of the cone. So these values are already known. This is 110 mm diameter, so radius is equal to 55. Inside diameter of cone is your 60 mm, so radius is equal to 30 mm. So from this you get mean radius is equal to 42.5 millimeters. So this is the mean radius of your cone surface. I'm showing the diagram so you can understand where is the mean radius. Let's go back to the diagram there. You can see here, this is your cone clutch. This radius is R2 and this radius, bigger end diameter radius is R1. So R1 value in this case is 55 mm and R2 value here in this distance is 30 mm. Okay, so since the shaft is rotating, both the shafts are rotating, the peripheral speed at this point, peripheral speed at this point, peripheral speed at this point, and peripheral speed at this point will depend upon the radius, because they are rotating at constant RPM. So this speed, velocity here, the tangential velocity at this point, tangential velocity at this point will be directly proportional to radius. So here you will find the velocity is low, here you will find the velocity is maximum. So when this cone and cup are rotating together in engaged condition, the air surrounding the surface or air surrounding the surface here will also move by phenomena of physical adhesion of that inner layer or outer layer of the air. So that air around that shaft or air around that cone surface will also rotate at means will move with a tangential velocity equal to the velocity of that surface at that point without slip condition. So velocity of air here and velocity of air here, by considering the thickness is negligible, we can say that velocity can be determined on this surface by considering this radius and this radius. So it is difficult to calculate velocity at each location. So what we'll do, we will calculate velocity at this midpoint or average velocity. So we are calculating here mean velocity. So for that, mean radius is calculated. So and that mean radius I have shown in the calculation. Yeah, this mean radius is equal to R1 plus R2 by 2. So mean radius here comes out to be 42.5. Now putting this value in this formula, you will get mean velocity is equal to 2 pi Rm, that is 42.5 millimeter, into 960 upon 60,000. So if you put in this formula, you will get the velocity in meter per second. So the velocity at the mean radius is equal to 4.27 meter per second. Now the air surrounding this plate is moving with that velocity. So this is an approximation here that I am assuming the velocity of air surrounding that cone surface or drum surface is average velocity is 4.27 meter per second. Now we require the properties of air. At this moment, we don't know the surface temperature. Surface temperature of, because it is asked in the problem, determine surface temperature. So we don't know the surface temperature. So solving this problem becomes difficult. So you need to evaluate. We have to take certain properties at a reference value. So I am considering the surface temperature, average surface temperature is higher. I am considering room temperature may be around say 30-35 degrees Celsius. And let's say the air surrounding film, that air film surrounding that surface here. Here the temperature may be say 30-35 degrees Celsius. Surface temperature, it is being asked in the problem, determine the surface temperature. So we don't know the surface temperature, and there in between this standstill air and this surface, moving surface, the air also is moving here. So small film is formed. So what we call it is a boundary layer. So a small boundary layer is formed. So if you take the thickness of that boundary layer and evaluate a average temperature of that boundary layer, so that average temperature may be in the range of 60 to 80 degrees Celsius. Average temperature may be in the range of 60 to 80 degrees Celsius. So I am considering the property of air in this small boundary layer at 60 degrees Celsius. Similarly, the heat will be conducted on this side also. So air surrounding this say cone surface on the inside side will also have similar properties, similar temperature. So we are considering the property of air on both sides, having temperature, average temperature of that air may be around 60 degrees Celsius. So these properties we have taken. So these properties are available in our heat transfer data book. They are not available in PhD data book. You have to use heat transfer data book. If such data is asked, you can ask the data. So properties of air data at various temperature can be used there. So I have listed the property of air. So properties of air at approximately 60 degrees Celsius. Why approximately 60 degrees Celsius? You know, because of boundary layer concept. So we have taken mean value of temperature of that boundary layer of air around 60 degrees Celsius. So at 60 degrees Celsius, density of air is 1.059 kg per meter cube. Then a specific heat of water air here is 1007 joule per kg per Kelvin. Thermal conductivity of air, this is from a table value. So these table values are available in heat transfer data book or heat transfer data. You have used heat transfer data in third year. I already demonstrated for few classes. I think I have not taught to you, but other classes I have taught. So how to use this data, they have been familiar. Then thermal conductivity of air is 0.02808 watt per meter per Kelvin. Dynamic viscosity of air 2.008 into 10 raised to minus 5 kg per meter per second. These are the properties of air. Now, since we are considering this is an horizontal shafting arrangement, so I can consider the radius R1 and R2 are not having much differences there. So I am consider it is like a hollow cylinder. This arrangement is like a hollow cylinder. So I am considering a formula for considering horizontal cylindrical surface. Let's evaluate Reynolds number here. So I am writing a Reynolds number here for diameter. So normally whenever there is a cylindrical object, normally we take Reynolds number in terms of diameter. So Reynolds number in terms of diameter is rho V D upon mu. So rho Vm D for dm, that is mean diameter, because this is a conical element, so the diameter is changing at every location. So let's take the mean diameter upon the viscosity of dynamic viscosity of air. Now we have taken this property data here. You are having this property data here. So you can put these values of property here. Rho is 1.059, Vm is 4.27, dm, that is Rm is 42.5. So dm will be double of this, that is 85 mm. Now since in this formula you have to put in meter, so this will be equal to 85 millimeter is equal to 0.085 meter. Then divided by your viscosity of air, that is 2.008 into 10 to minus 5. So based on this, the Reynolds number here around this conic, say horizontal cone, it's around 19,141. So Reynolds number here is 19,141. Now let's go to the next, so continuation of this thermal analysis. Now we have Reynolds here, the cylinder. I am assuming R1 and R2 are not far different. So I am considering this cone as a horizontal cylinder, because getting the formula for conical surface will be quite difficult. So I am considering horizontal rotating cylinder. Cylinder is not fixed here. That cone or clutch is rotating. So rotating part, and Reynolds number is greater than 8,000 here. So we have Reynolds number greater than 8,000. Following relation can be used for Nusselt relation. So I am writing Nusselt relation here. Nusselt relation for diameter as a characteristic dimension, NUD is equal to 0.022 RED raised to 0.821. This is from a literature. You can get similar or equivalent formula in the heat transfer data book for rotating cylinder, horizontal or vertical. But they may not be exactly same formula, because different authors will have different formulas. But this is an formula from research paper. So you can use this formula, you can remember this formula, or you can refer the formula from heat transfer data book. There are the formulas available, different formula, but you have to see that what is your Reynolds number calculated. Based on the Reynolds number, you can use that formula. Now, since our Reynolds number is greater than 8,000, we can use this formula with this coefficient and exponent here. So we get the Nusselt relation here, Nusselt value, Nusselt dimensionless number is equal to in the diameter, that is equal to 72.09. Here, Nusselt relation will have 72.09 dimensionless number. Now, you have to use this dimensionless number to determine the heat transfer coefficient around the surface. So, heat transfer coefficient on the surface of the cylinder, or heat transfer coefficient on the surface of drum or cone, in external surface or internal surface, NUD is equal to HD by K. So, now we know NUD by this relation. H is unknown, we are going to determine. D is the mean diameter here. So D is the diameter is changing for cone. So we are taking mean diameter here. K is the property of air, that is the thermal conductivity of air here. So this value is 72.09. H is unknown. D mean diameter is 0.085, and K value for air from the property table, that is 0.02808. So once you do this calculation, you get the heat transfer coefficient here. Heat transfer coefficient H is equal to 23.81 watt per meter square per Kelvin. Let me tell, heat transfer coefficient is never constant. It is a parametric function for given situation, for given geometry, having similar outside conditions. If you change the speed of your shaft, then also the heat transfer coefficient will change. Please remember, heat transfer coefficient, even though we have shaft plus size same, power is transmitted same, outside atmospheric condition is same. But if the speed of that shaft is changed, then heat transfer coefficient will also change there, because As the speed is changed, the velocity, mean velocity changes. Mean velocity changes. Reynolds number changes. Reynolds number changes means Nusselt number changes. Nusselt number changes means your H is going to change. So they are correlated to each other. So heat transfer coefficient evaluation is quite difficult and tricky task. So for that you need to refer the heat transfer data book. Okay, so we are evaluated the heat transfer coefficient. So I am assuming the, heat transfer coefficient on external surface and internal surface is same. Actually, it is different, but we can assume negligible thickness, and we can assume H is equal to 23.81 on external surface as well as internal surface. What is external and internal? Let's see on in the diagram. Okay, so this is your cone and cup clutch arrangement. This is the cup, this is the cone. So this is the external surface which is in contact with the external air, and this is the internal surface which is in contact with air. So I am assuming heat transfer coefficient on this surface is same as heat transfer coefficient on this surface also. In this theoretically and practically it is not same, but for assumption purpose we are taking same because we are assuming the thickness of this cup and thickness of cone is same. We are assuming this material and this material is same. So there is a chances heat transfer coefficient on this surface and on this surface may be same. So let's take equal heat transfer coefficient on both surface. I am assuming equal area on this side and equal area on this side. Actually, the area on this side will be more, and area on this heat transfer area available on this side may be slightly low. But for simplifying the calculation, we are assuming same area here and same area here. So let's go for the total heat transfer calculation here by using the H value. Okay, so once you calculate heat transfer coefficient, now you require surface area of the cone oblique cup. So I am considering either cone or cup area by considering negligible thickness. So we are not counting the thickness. So surface area, lateral surface area. So lateral surface area is equal to mean perimeter into the width of that lateral surface. So 2 pi rm into this is 2 pi rm is your perimeter at the mean diameter. B is the width, conical width in the along the cone angle. What is the width of that cone surface or width of the drum surface? So this B can be evaluated by this formula, that is sin alpha is equal to R1 minus R2 upon B. So we know R1, we know R2. We have also considered alpha as 15 degree in this problem. So alpha is also known. So from this formula, the unknown value of B can be calculated. So let's put the value of alpha 15, R1 is equal to 55 and R2 is equal to 30 in millimeter. These are in millimeter. So you will get B value, that is the length of the cone, what we call slant length of the cone or lateral length of the cone. B is equal to 96.59 millimeter. So this is the design value. So let's take this design value approximately as a 100 mm. So this is the 100 mm cone length or drum length in the inclined direction. So by putting this value in the area formula, you can calculate the external cone surface area or internal cone surface area. So average area will be equal to 2 pi into rm, that is in meter, 0.0425 meter, into your length into this is in millimeter. So length you have to take in meter here. So B value in meter is 0.1 meter. So you get area. So conical area, cone surface area or cup surface area is equal to 0.0267 meters square. Now using this area, using this heat transfer coefficient, you can determine heat transfer rate. So heat transfer through the outer surface or outer and inner surface, that and I have not put here. Heat transfer through the outer and inner surface is equal to, I am considering H is same, area is same on inner and outer surface. So that heat transfer will be 2 times HA delta T. So if you take any one surface, either internal surface or external surface, and heat transfer coefficient on that surface and delta T at that point, and just multiply by 2 times, we'll get the total heat transfer rate through that. So the total heat transfer rate Q is equal to 2 HA delta T. A is the one surface area, H is the heat transfer coefficient on that surface, and delta T is the surface temperature minus atmospheric temperature. Delta T here is surface temperature minus atmospheric temperature. Now, where this Q is generated, that is very important. You are transmitting power. So, where this Q is generated. So, when you transmit the power with the friction plates or friction clutches, cone clutch is also friction clutch. So, there is a chances of slip. There is a chances of slip, and the slip may be of the order of 2 to 5% depending upon your axial load condition. If your spring force is lower, then your slip may be higher. If your axial force is more, then slip may be minimum or it will be very low. But there is a small amount of slip happening into the clutch. So whenever there is a slip, the power will not get entirely transmitted. Some portion of that power will be converted into the friction, and this friction will be converted into heat. So we are assuming whatever power loss takes place is converted into the total heat here. So we are considering here the slippage in the clutch amounts to 2 to 5%. So let's say the slippage in the clutch system is approximately 2 to 5%. So total, so because of that there will be power loss. So total power loss I am considering. It is not necessarily that entire power loss is converted into heat. There are other losses also, but we are considering that total power loss is converted into heat. So considering 2% slippage, so I am considering 2% slippage. So heat generated in the friction lining here, heat generated in the friction lining is equal to 2 by 100, 2% considered into the power to be transmitted. So power we are transmitting here 11 kilowatt. So 2% means 0.02 into power in watt here, that is 11,000 watt. So the amount of heat generated is around 220 watt. So this is the total heat generated. Now, if you are running your shaft, there is after some time, initially the temperature of that surface is low. After some time, the temperature will start increasing, and after some time, you will reach a steady state, and the temperature will be constant. The surface temperature will be constant. So you will reach a steady state condition. So I'm considering steady state condition. So the power loss will be exactly converted into the heat transfer. Power will be lost in terms of converted into the heat, and that heat will be dissipated to the outside surface. Now the heat dissipation may be by radiation, may be by conduction, may be by convection. So this is the heat transfer by convection on the outer surface. So we are assuming the heat transfer reaching the outer surface is equal to the heat generated. That is equal to the heat generated. So outer surface and inner surface, this heat is generated. So we are considering power loss is equal to 220 watt or 220 watt energy is lost. So heat transfer, we are using this formula 2 HA delta T. So 2 it is there, inner and outer surface. H is calculated, that is 23.81. So 23.81 area. This is either one area because we are multiplied 2 times. So we are considered the mean area. Mean area is equal to 2 pi RMB. So mean area is 0.0267 into delta T. So from this we can determine that delta T for that surface and the atmospheric temperature condition. Outside surface temperature of the plate, or the inside surface temperature of that cone which is having contact with air. So that delta T is equal to Ts minus Ta. Ts is the surface temperature and Ta is your atmospheric temperature. So when you put these values here, we get delta T here is equal to 173.03 degrees Celsius. I am considering the atmospheric temperature or room temperature or say working temperature is around 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. So let's take a 35 degrees Celsius. So Ts is equal to 208.03. This is our final answer. It is asked in the problem, what is the surface temperature? So the surface temperature may be around 208.03. But in actual practice, this is a theoretical surface temperature. In actual practice, your surface temperature will not be 208. It will be lower than this 208 value, because the heat will be lost by different mechanism there. At this moment, I am considering the heat is lost by conduction and convection. But there is a chances heat is lost by radiation also, which is not considered in the design calculation here. Because if your surface temperature exceeds, say, 100 degree or 150 degree Celsius, the predominant heat transfer mode is normally radiation, followed by convection, and then followed by conduction. So when your delta T is greater than, say, 100 or say 150 degrees Celsius, then the major heat transfer is by radiation, which is not considered. So if we consider the heat transfer by radiation, the surface temperature may be less than 200 degrees Celsius, but not less than 150 degrees Celsius definitely. So this way we can calculate surface temperature considering the entire heat transfer is by conduction and convection. Now similarly, we are using the material here for the plate and as well as for drum. You can see here in the diagram. See, this is the material of the cup and this is the material of the cone. Many times the materials are same, but there are chances that this material may be made up of steel and this material may be made up of cast iron. So they will have different properties based on material use. In our problem, we are considering this material and this material is made up of steel. So we are considering both the materials are having same property, as well as we have considered the thickness of this cone here and thickness of drum here is same. In actual practice, in actual design, you can have different thickness here and different thickness here. So let's say we are assuming this material and this material is same, as well as we are assuming that this thickness and this thickness is same. So let's evaluate. We have evaluated what is the surface temperature here. So that temperature is around 208. There is a chance what is the surface temperature here, because that temperature will decide the stability of the friction lining material here. If the temperature is very high, there is a chance your friction lining material will burn. So sometimes you need to use say oil here, or you have to use some coolant media here so that the surface temperature can be kept minimum. So you can use say water cooling jacket or any other mechanism. If very high power is transmitted, then you have to use jacketing mechanism to cool the surface. Otherwise, this friction lining materials will burn, and as they will burn and wear out, then power transmission will be issue. So proper power will not be transmitted by either by cone clutch or flat your plate material or any other multi-plate clutch also. So we can determine this temperature by considering heat transfer through this thickness by conduction. So you can use Fourier's law of heat transfer, and you can determine what is the temperature inside here once you know the surface temperature. So that also I have demonstrated here, how to determine the friction lining material temperature here. Here. So temperature at the contact surface, your cone and drum is contacting with the help of friction lining. So here we are considering heat transfer conducted through the cup material. So heat transfer conducted through the cup material is half the heat generated by the clutch. So I am considering heat is transferred on external surface as well as internal surface. Half heat is transmitted by cone and half heat is transmitted by cup. So I am considering half heat is going through the cup material and half heat is going through the cone material. So heat conducted by cup is equal to QC, C for cup, Q by 2, Ka dt by dx. So delta T by dx. Dx here is thickness of your cone here or cup here. So K is the thermal conductivity of that material, thermal conductivity of your cup material or cone material. We are assuming cup and cone are made up of steel. So for the K value for steel material varies from 20 to 100 depending upon the type of grade. But on an average, the K value for steel material is taken in the range from 40 to 60. So I have taken the K value for steel material as 50 watt per meter per degree per Kelvin. So watt per meter per Kelvin. K value for your steel plate is around 50. So QC total heat is 220. So 220 divided by 2. K 50. The surface area through which this heat transfer is taking place, that is the lateral surface area, mean surface area is equal to 0.0267 meters square. Delta T, this is the delta T between the friction lining temperature and the outer surface temperature or inner surface temperature of your cone. So delta T here divided by thickness of your cup or drum, say cup or a cone. So thickness of the is we have taken as 10 mm. So 10 mm in terms of meter is 0.01 meter. So from this you can calculate delta T. So delta T comes out to be 0.8239. Since we are using highly conducting material, we are using the cone material and drum material is highly conducting material. So that's why delta T here is minimum. So that is equal to just 1 degree Celsius, approximately 1 degree Celsius. So we get Ti minus Ts. Ts is evaluated here, that is 208. So we get the inside surface temperature, Ti is equal to 208.85. If you use, say, cast iron here, if you use plates cast iron here, so K will change. Then K value may be of the order of, say, 10 to, say, 25. Then your delta T will increase there. So what type of material we are using for cone? So for cone plates, the material should be highly conducting. So many times you will find steel plates are also used, but sometimes the steel plates being having lower thermal conductivity value creates a problem, but they can take higher bearing pressure. So sometimes the thermal issue is there, temperature issue is there, cooling is difficult. So in such case, plates used are made up of brass material. Sometimes you can use pressure plates made up of brass material or friction lining. So where the friction lining is mounted, they are made up of brass material, and the alternate arrangement of, say, pressure plate is done where the steel plates are used. So brass or say copper is having very high value of thermal conductivity. The brass has thermal conductivity in the range of 100 watt per meter per Kelvin to around 220 watt per meter per Kelvin. And pure copper, brass is not a pure copper, brass is an alloy of copper. So pure copper has thermal conductivity in the range from, say, 300 to 400 watt per meter per Kelvin. You can use friction plates made up of nowadays. Some they are trying to use the friction plates of aluminum also, but they are very poor in bearing pressure. They cannot be used for very high bearing pressure. If your application requires minimum bearing pressure, so you can use your aluminum plates also. Aluminum also has good thermal conductivity value. The value of aluminum ranges from 150 to 250 watt per meter per Kelvin. So whenever we design the plates or cone clutch, the cone clutch material is either taken steel or brass, is not only because of strength, it is also its thermal conductivity property, because whatever heat generated or because of slippage or friction has to be dissipated to the atmosphere properly, or otherwise you have to use cooling media. So many times you will find they use oil, so they will have, instead of dry lubrication, they will have wet lubrication. That is, instead of operating clutch in terms of dry condition, they will operate the clutch in wet condition, and you can have working of the clutch step. So this is regarding thermal analysis for typically for cone clutch I explained, but it is generally applicable for other types of clutch also. Okay, so let's move to the next part, that is how centrifugal clutch works. So centrifugal clutch is normally called as automatic clutch. It works based on the centrifugal force mechanism. As your speed of your shaft increases, centrifugal force increases. So let's see how it works. This is your driving shaft, and this is your driven shaft. On this driving shaft, various weights are mounted here, and these weights are supported with the help of springs. You can see here, this is the weight, one weight, this is another weight. So there are 4 to 6 weights will be mounted depending upon the size of the shaft and power to be transmitted. And number of springs will be there. And these weights can move radially inward and outward in the guideways. So this is the guideways provided here. And these weights mounted with a string, they can move in and out in the radial direction. So how they move in the radial direction? When this shaft rotates, when the shaft speed is low, these spring will have spring force will have this block, weight block, very close to the shaft radius. As your speed of the shaft increases, if you increase that speed, then this block will start moving away. And the outer end of this block, there is a friction lining material here. You can see these are the friction lining material here. And the driven shaft has a drum surface here. So when sufficiently large speed is obtained by the driving shaft, this surface will be touching to the drum surface here. So they will make a physical contact and there will be friction, and that friction force will drive this driven shaft. So this is an automatic clutch. Unless we increase the speed of driver shaft, the engagement will not happen. So here the engagement will happen after you increase the input shaft speed, then output shaft will be automatically connected. But in earlier cases, cone clutch and this thing, there is already engagement. They are normally closed clutch, but centrifugal clutch is a normally open clutch. So in normal condition, your centrifugal clutch is in open condition. As you want to desire to engage, then you have to increase the speed of your torque. So where we can use the centrifugal clutch? So centrifugal clutch can be used where drive mechanism having variable speed. See the construction detail of this centrifugal clutch and the usage also. Normally it is used with a variable, so normally used in small bikes for small power transmission.
And welcome to the Automotives. Today we look on the principle and working of centrifugal clutch. In almost every vehicle with engine requires clutch, which allows the engine to start and brake it accordingly. Centrifugal clutch is also one of them. So today in this video we will discuss on centrifugal clutch. Today in this video, we will take a look at what is working principle of centrifugal clutch, what is the use of centrifugal clutch, construction and working of centrifugal clutch, and at last we ended with advantage and limitation of it. Centrifugal clutch works on the principle of centrifugal force, which means when engine speed reaches to a specific RPM, it generates enough centrifugal force inside the clutch, which results in clutch engagement, and it transmits the engine power. In lower speed, it disconnects itself to stop power transmission. Centrifugal clutch usually equipped in gearless vehicles, which includes the mopeds and scooters. Other than that, it fits in go-kart, mini bikes, chainsaw and some mini boats. Centrifugal clutch consists of one driving member and one driven member. Driving member is made of a spider or guide which contains spring and brake shoes. It manufactured in different designs as per the need. Driven member consists of friction lining on the inner surface. Here, the driving member is connected with engine crankshaft while driven member advances to the transmission of vehicle. Centrifugal clutch works on very straightforward principle. Here, driving member rotates on movement of engine crankshaft. When engine speed reaches to specified and designed RPM, it generates the enough centrifugal force on the brake shoes. It pushes the shoes outward of center, which results in connection of brake shoes to the friction lining of driven member. It generates friction and transmits the engine power. When engine speed reaches to desired RPM, clutch engages itself, eliminating the need of manual operating linkage. To reduce or increase the engagement RPM of clutch, the spring is replaced. To increase the engagement RPM, stiff spring is used, while to decrease the engagement speed, soft spring is provided. There are many advantages of centrifugal clutch. The first one is simple construction with fewer parts, which leads to less maintenance. Manufacturing cost is also low, that makes clutch very affordable. Since this is fully automatic clutch, it does not require any operating mechanism. If we talk about limitation, the main limitation of centrifugal clutch is slippage. Slippage in clutch leads to higher power loss during transmission at higher speed, which results in poor power transmitting capacity. One more issue is overheating of clutch due to major slippage problem. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, guys. If you like the video, please give us the thumbs up and subscribe to the Automotives Global. So whenever we upload a new technological video, you get that notification. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, I have shown how centrifugal clutch work, what are the constructional details, as well as what are the usage of centrifugal clutch. So today we have completed the clutch chapter. So we have completed the design of single plate clutch, multi-plate clutch, design of cone clutch. Centrifugal clutch design is not there, the theory is there. So design is also similar to this thing. But here the major element is spring. So spring design is very, very important design in the centrifugal clutch. A right selection of right size of spring, right number of turns, right diameter of wire, diameter of coil is very, very important, because the entire working of centrifugal clutch is based on the spring selection. So this is, since spring design you all learn in machine design one, so I'm not going to repeat here. So we will stop here. If any difficulty or any query has, you can unmute and ask. Design. Okay. So if you don't have any query, so I will declare. I have another work of examination, so I will declare our session is over. So you can log out. If anybody has doubt, I am still there 5 minutes, so you can ask the doubt.